Welcome back, everyone, to another REACHLaw Deep Dive. We've got a really important one today, all about UK REACH and what's coming up in the next few years.
Yeah, compliance deadlines, new fees. It's a lot to keep track of, especially with that 2026 registration deadline looming.
Right, so we dug into the latest guidance and updates, and today we're going to try and break it all down.
No stone unturned.
Exactly. We'll look back at the foundations of UK REACH, cover the big recent changes, especially the HSE fees, and the new Alternative Transitional Registration Model, or ATRm, as everyone's calling it.
And of course, the key actions you should be taking now to make sure you're ready for anything.
So let's start with the basics. Just to remind everyone, UK REACH came into effect back on January 1st, 2021, covering England, Wales, and Scotland.
Great Britain.
Great Britain, yeah. And while it doesn't directly apply to Northern Ireland, businesses there might still have some obligations under EU REACH because of the whole Northern Ireland protocol situation.
It's a unique situation for sure.
It is. So who does UK REACH actually apply to? Well, if your business manufactures or imports chemical substances into Great Britain at 1 ton or more per year, you're probably subject to UK REACH.
Unless you fall under one of the exemptions, of course. There are a few of those.
There are always exceptions. And for those manufacturers who aren't based in Great Britain,
They've got the option of appointing an only representative. It's a GB-based company that can handle all the UK REACH registration on their behalf.
so that takes a lot of the pressure off, right?
It definitely simplifies things for those companies.
Okay, now let's rewind a bit. Back when UK REACH first came into play, companies who are already registered under EU REACH got a bit of a grace period.
That's right. They could essentially grandfather their existing EU REACH registrations into the UK system.
Until April 30th, 2021.
And after that, GB importers, who were relying on those EU REACH registrations further up the supply chain, they had a chance to submit what we call a DUIN,
A doing.
downstream user import notification. That's a mouthful.
It is. What does that do?
Basically, it bought them some extra time to get their full UK REACH registration sorted.
So it's not a complete registration in itself.
Not at all.
Okay.
Think of it as a placeholder. You still need to do the full registration eventually.
And if anyone's unsure about their doing or whether a late submission is still possible, this is where REACHLaw UK can really come in handy.
Our team can assess your situation and give you the best advice for your specific case.
Okay, so we've got the basics down. Now, let's get into those timeline changes. Things have moved around a bit, haven't they?
They have. In 2023, the UK government made some amendments to the REACH age regulations, pushing back a lot of those original deadlines.
Give us a rundown.
The first deadline, which was initially October 27, 2023, has been moved to, drumroll please, October 27, 2026.
3 whole years.
Yep. This new deadline applies to substances manufactured or imported in quantities of 1,000 tons or more per year, and that's for all hazard classes.
Even those that aren't classified as hazardous.
Right. Plus, it also covers substances at 100 tons per year or more that are classified as aquatic acute 1 or aquatic chronic 1.
H400 and H410, for those who know the codes.
Exactly. And if you're dealing with substances classified as carcinogenic, mutagenic, or toxic to reproduction category 1A or 1B, even at just 1 ton per year, that 2026 deadline still applies.
And just to be super clear, this includes any substance that was already on the UK REACH candidate list as of December 31st, 2023.
Right, so there's a lot to unpack there.
There is. What about the next deadline?
That one was originally October 27, 2025,
Okay.
but it's now been shifted to October 27, 2028.
Another 3-year extension.
Yep. This covers substances at 100 tons per year or more, again across all hazard classes, including those not classified as hazardous.
So similar to the first deadline in that sense.
Similar, but this one also includes substances that are added to the UK REACH candidate list between January 1st, 2024 and October 27, 2026.
So any new additions to the candidate list during that period fall under this deadline?
Precisely.
And what about that final deadline?
Well, it was originally October 27, 2027, but guess what? It's now October 27, 2030.
So this last deadline applies to everything else, basically.
Pretty much. Any substance at 1 ton per year or more of all the remaining hazard classes, including non-hazardous ones, that's their deadline.
Okay, so we've got a good understanding of the timeline now. But, of course, everything's always subject to change, right?
Of course. We're talking about regulations here. Things are always evolving.
And speaking of evolving, let's talk about that Alternative Transitional Registration Model, the ATRm.
Yes, the ATRM. That's a big one.
DEFRA launched a consultation on it back in May of 2024.
They did. And it's all about trying to find a balance, really. They want to maintain those strong environmental and health protections that are at the heart of UK REACH, but they also recognize the need to make things a bit easier for businesses.
Streamline the process, reduce the costs, that sort of thing.
Exactly. And that's where the ATRm comes in.
What's the gist of it?
Well, the ATRm is really focused on what they're calling transitional substances.
Transitional substances.
Yes, basically these are substances that were already registered under EU REACH before December 31st, 2020.
Ah, so most of the substances that are already out there in the market.
Right. And for these transitional substances, the ATRM proposes a slightly less demanding set of requirements, less data, less testing, that sort of thing.
So they're not starting from scratch.
Nope. They're building on what's already known about these substances, focusing more on targeted data collection related to their specific uses and potential exposure scenarios here in Great Britain.
That makes sense. Sounds like a more focused approach, less broad brush.
It is definitely more risk-based.
Now, besides this focus on transitional substances, what are some of the other key features of the ATRM?
Well, they're proposing to give the regulators, the HSE and the Environment Agency, a bit more power to request specific studies if they have concerns about a particular substance.
So a bit more targeted intervention if needed?
Yep. And they're really doubling down on the one substance, one registration principle.
Which we touched on earlier.
Right. It's all about encouraging companies to collaborate, share data, avoid unnecessary duplication.
Saves everyone time and money in the long run.
Exactly. On top of that, they're looking at streamlining the process for placing restrictions on substances, minimizing the need for animal testing, and aligning the chemical safety report requirements with this reduced data approach.
So a pretty substantial overhaul then.
You could say that.
And where do things stand with the ATRM now?
Well, the consultation closed a while back, and DIFRA received a huge number of responses. They're currently analyzing all of that, and we're expecting a summary of their findings sometime this year, in 2025.
So still some way to go.
Yeah, after the analysis, there'll probably be another round of consultations on more specific proposals, and then the drafting of the actual legal text.
And eventually, new guidance for businesses.
Exactly. It'll be a while before everything's finalized, but at least companies have some insight into the direction things are heading.
They do. And while we wait for the ATRM to solidify, let's shift gears and talk about the new HSE fees for UK REACH registrations. So tell me, what are the big changes companies need to be aware of? Let's start with the large companies.
Okay, so for large companies, it's a bit of a mixed bag. The fee for the lowest tonnage band, 1 to 10 tons per year, has actually gone up quite a bit.
How much are we talking?
It's gone from £1,138 to £2,222.
That's almost double.
It is, so that's something to be aware of. But for all the higher tonnage bands, 10 to 100, 100 to 1,000, and over 1,000 tons per year, the fees have all been reduced to that same £2,222.
So a big saving for companies dealing with larger volumes.
A huge saving, especially for those in the highest tonnage categories.
And how about the SMEs? Any good news for them?
Oh, absolutely. This is where the changes are really positive. For medium enterprises, the registration fee is now £740, regardless of the tonnage band.
That's a pretty good deal.
It is. And it gets even better for smaller companies. For small enterprises, the fee is just £399, again, for all tonnage bands.
Wow, that's a big difference.
It is. And for micro enterprises, the fee is just £57, no matter how much they're registering.
£57, that's practically nothing.
It's a huge reduction, makes compliance much more achievable for these smaller businesses.
Definitely a positive step. Now, were there any other changes apart from the standard registration fees?
Yes, a few. The fees for intermediates have gone up to £2,222 for large companies, but the reduced fees for SMEs still apply. The fee for a change in legal personality has actually gone down quite a bit. It's now just £290.
It's a nice surprise.
And then there are some changes to the fees for PP/D notifications. Those are for substances used in research and development. The initial notification fee has gone up slightly to £751, but the extension fee has gone down to the same amount, £751.
Okay, so a lot of changes to keep track of.
There are, but the key takeaway here is that these changes mean big savings for a lot of companies.
Especially those in the higher tonnage bands and those SMEs.
Exactly. But it's important to remember that those large companies in that lowest tonnage band, 1 to 10 tons per year, they're actually going to see an increase.
So it's essential for everyone to understand how these changes will affect them specifically.
Absolutely. Don't just assume it's good news across the board.
All right, now let's look ahead to that all-important deadline in 2026. What are the key actions companies should be taking now to prepare for UK REACH registration?
Well, in a regulatory environment that's constantly changing, being proactive is absolutely key.
Couldn't agree more.
And one of the most important things companies can do right now is submit a UK REACH inquiry to the HSE.
So even though the full registration process might not be entirely clear yet because of the ATRm and all that, submitting an inquiry is still a good move.
A great move, actually. There are so many benefits to doing it early.
Lay it on me.
Okay, first of all, it ensures you're on track for early access to the GB market. By submitting an inquiry, you're basically asking the HSE to check if the substance you're planning to register is already registered by someone else.
So you don't waste time and money duplicating efforts?
Exactly. And it also lets you know if there are any opportunities for data sharing, which can save you even more down the line.
So a win-win.
Definitely. Second, it opens the door to potential cost savings through, you guessed it, data sharing.
You love data sharing.
Who doesn't? UK REACH, like EU REACH, is all about collaboration, so by submitting an inquiry early, you get access to what's called the substance group.
The substance group.
Yep. It's similar to the Substance Information Exchange forums under EU REACH.
Bringing back the memories.
The substance group allows you to connect with other companies who are interested in registering the same substance. That could be other potential registrants, only representatives, UK manufacturers, importers.
So it's all about joining forces, pooling resources.
That's the idea. By working together, you can share the costs of generating the data you need for registration.
Much more efficient than everyone going it alone.
Absolutely.
Okay, what's the next big benefit of getting that inquiry in early?
Well, it helps you avoid those dreaded compliance bottlenecks.
Nobody likes a bottleneck.
Especially when deadlines are approaching. Regulatory bodies like the HSE often operate on a first-come, first-served basis, particularly when there's a lot of interest in a particular substance.
So if you wait until the last minute.
You could end up stuck in a queue, facing delays, and increasing your risk of non-compliance.
Not a good look.
Not at all. By acting early, you can navigate the process much more smoothly and efficiently.
So plan ahead, be proactive, avoid the rush.
Exactly. And on top of that, submitting an early inquiry gives you a much better handle on planning and risk management.
Always important.
Essential. When you submit an inquiry, you get that early clarity on exactly what's required for your specific substances. This allows you to plan your strategy, budget for compliance costs, and ensure your supply chain is prepared.
And it gives you time to address any potential issues or data gaps before they turn into major problems.
Exactly.
And last but not least, why else is an early inquiry a good idea?
It's a great way to demonstrate your company's commitment to compliance.
Good corporate citizenship.
Right. Regulatory bodies like the HSE really appreciate it when companies take their responsibilities seriously.
Makes their job easier too, I imagine.
It does. And by submitting an inquiry early, you're showing the HSE that you're proactive, you're on top of things. It can reduce the risk of enforcement actions, fines, restrictions, and it just enhances your company's reputation overall.
So really no downside to submitting an inquiry early.
Not really, especially when you consider all the potential benefits.
All right, so beyond the inquiry itself, what are some other fundamental steps companies should be taking to make sure they're meeting their obligations under UK REACH?
Well, the most important thing is to really understand your specific role and what that means in terms of your duties under UK REACH.
So figure out where you fit in the whole system.
Exactly. Are you a manufacturer producing substances within Great Britain? Are you an importer bringing substances into Great Britain?
Which, by the way, is something to pay close attention to. If you used to be a downstream user in Great Britain under EU REACH, but are now sourcing directly from the EU or the EEA.
Good point, because in that case, you're likely considered an importer under UK REACH.
So it's really important to check those details and make sure you're categorized correctly.
Absolutely. And then you need to determine whether you're simply a downstream user of substances or if it makes sense for you to appoint an only representative for your non-GB suppliers.
So once you've got your role figured out, what are the big obligations you need to fulfill?
The main one is registration. That means gathering all the information you can on the substances you're dealing with, their properties, their uses, the potential hazards and risks involved.
And this all goes into a registration dossier that you submit to the HSE.
That's right. And remember, UK REACH follows that one substance, one registration principle. So if you're working with a substance that's already been registered, you don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Collaboration is key. Now, for those companies who are thinking about becoming a lead registrant, what do they need to keep in mind?
Well, being a lead registrant is a big responsibility.
You're essentially the point person for that substance.
You are. You're the one liaising with the HSE on behalf of all the co-registrants, and you're the one who submits the main registration dossier.
So it's not a role to be taken lightly.
Not at all. If you're planning to be a lead registrant, you need to start preparing early. That means gathering data, conducting hazard assessments, putting together your dossier. It's a complex process, and the earlier you start, the better.
So to sum it all up, UK REACH is a constantly evolving landscape.
It is, but by staying informed, being proactive, and understanding your obligations, companies can navigate the process smoothly and ensure their continued access to the GB market.
And that's what it's all about, right?
Exactly.
So if anyone out there is feeling overwhelmed or uncertain about what to do next, REACHLaw UK is here to help.
Our team can help you with everything from doing assessments to only representative services, and we can guide you through every step of the registration process.
You can reach out to us at sales@reachlaw.fi. We're always happy to answer your questions and provide support.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something for everyone to think about. Which specific substances in your product portfolio need your attention now?
Don't wait until 2026 to start thinking about this.
The time to act is now. Thanks for joining us for this UK REACH deep dive. We hope you found it helpful. Stay tuned for more deep dives coming soon.
Until next time.
Bye for now.